You talk about somebody who is going to be hard to live up to. That's going to be the loss on the football field of Minkah Fitzpatrick. The guy was a transcendent defensive back player, special player for the Capstone. But one young man showed some brilliance to be – he kind of reminds me of Eddie Jackson in terms of the way he played. And he's really the only experience Alabama has at any meaningful big-time playing time, and that's Deonte Thompson. And this is what Nick Saban had to say about him and his playing and contribution for the 2018 Tide.
Well, I think that, he played almost 2 full games of very big games and did a really, really good job. I think it helped his confidence a lot. I think he's a lot more confident in what he's supposed to do. He has a better understanding. Certainly has a lot of confidence that he can do it because he did play very well for us in those 2 games. So, we're excited about that. We don't have a lot of experience in the secondary right now, but I think those games that he played certainly gave him a level of confidence and experience that'll be very helpful to even helping the other guys play better.
I think that Thompson actually played better than the guy he replaced. I think he played at an extremely high level, better than even Hootie Jones did. And so that's key as Alabama moves forward. But they're going to have a lot of new faces in there. And Nick Saban went back out, James. And this is one of the things that I love about recruiting with Nick Saban is he doesn't appear when kids go somewhere else, he leaves such a good taste in their mouth that they still believe what he told them and the opportunity they would have. And that is shown in Savion Smith, a young man who Nick Saban wanted on the Capstone out of high school. He went to LSU, didn't feel like he was going to be a fit with the new staff, goes to JUCO. Nick Saban brings him in. I believe he has a key role. He has to, James, in my opinion, with all of those young guys, he has to be one of the key players, junior college player, but first time on the Capstone. Nick Saban says this is what they're looking for and expecting for him and how he's doing this spring.
Well, we recruited him in high school, and we thought he was a really good player, and he's done a nice job so far this spring. He's a bright guy. He understands football. He is picking the stuff up pretty well. Fundamentally, we're working on some of his techniques that is a little different than maybe what he's played in the past, but I'm pleased with the progress that he's made so far. But we certainly want to continue to work with him because there's a lot of things that we can improve, that he can improve on, and we can help him improve. And that's going to be the focus for the rest of the spring.
Speaking of Savion Smith, I believe he has to be one of those starting corners, James, listeners. Then I believe this is what I think Nick Saban may be hoping happens, James. He locks down one corner. Diggs gets the other corner solidified, James. But I believe Diggs is also going to work some at safety. I believe that Diggs is athletic enough, big enough, strong enough, and physical enough of a player to potentially play one of those safety spots, because if Surtain is everything that they expect him to be, don't be surprised to see him come in and be one of those lockdown corners that jumps on the field immediately and gives Alabama a lot more flexibility in that secondary with a Trayvon Diggs that can play corner as well as play some potential safety. And if Smith locks down one corner, it gives Nick Saban more flexibility this fall in terms of working Patrick Surtain Jr. in. But if they're still trying to find 2 corners this fall, it will not be a good thing the first few games that Alabama plays in terms of the secondary. Also, Nick Saban, we talked a little bit earlier about chemistry and coaching. And I'd ask a question, James. Is Nick Saban sometimes a little overrated in his contribution as a defensive back coach? In my opinion, he is in terms of what he actually does on the field. He's over there and all of that. But the reason I say that is I think Nick Saban needs to have a guy like Jeremy Pruitt, a guy like Ainsley who left and went to the Raiders, and a guy like Scott, I believe, a guy who can hear what Nick Saban wants to do and then go out there and demonstrate it. Nick Saban worked. I think his mental part to the game is huge, but I don't know that physically he contributes as much as we give him credit for, because remember, when Jeremy Pruitt left and Kirby was coaching the DBs and it was Kirby and Nick, our DBs were bad. And I think that's because of the physical teaching. And I think that's why Saban went out and got a young Carl Scott, a young defensive back coach that understands the technical side, but also has the ability to teach it. Now, they got a lot of young guys over there. And one of those guys, Kevin Smith mentioning Xavier McKinney, they said that he is having a lights out spring so far. Of course, yesterday was the first day in pads. But here's the question, James. Does Nick Saban take it easy on these guys because they're young? Not at all. And that's what I love about Nick Saban. If we had more people that had this mentality, James, where you don't baby people and, let's not teach them, let's not push them, let's make sure that they get it right the first time and that they never fail. That's not Nick Saban's philosophy.
Nick Saban and taking it easy. Isn't the only time he does that is when he's listening to the Eagles?
No, actually, the only time he does it is, did you catch the end of his press conference as he's walking off? He was walking off, and this shows you that lighter side of Nick Saban. He comes back at the end of his press conference and starts talking about Easter, and then he says, yeah. He smiles and says, I get to hide the Easter eggs with my grandbaby, and I get to show where they're at. So
good for him.
So that's the lighter side of Nick Saban. But as far as James, just pushing players, that's what this generation needs. But so many people, parents, coaches, teachers, they're trying to please this generation. They don't want anybody to fail. Nick Saban has the exact opposite philosophy. Let's give them as much as we can. Let's challenge them as much as we can. And then let's back up from there. Let's not start off and set a low bar, but let's set a high bar. And this is what Nick Saban had to say when he was asked about him changing his approach to coaching the defensive backs because he's young and has a lot of new staff members.
I don't know what you mean by approach. We always coach players whole part whole. You kind of throw a bucket of whatever you want to call it up against the wall and see what sticks, and then fill the bucket up again and throw it up against it again, and eventually it all sticks. But, to say because we don't have much experience, we're going to take things slow, not expose the players to the things they need to get exposed to, then next fall you're behind. I think I'd rather do it the way we do it and expose them to the stuff and then decide if they don't have it, they can't get it, they're not ready to do it, don't do it, then not try to do it. So, but I've been pretty pleased with, we just don't have the numbers of guys that we need. I think we only have 7 guys on scholarship, and we're working 2 offensive guys, some on defense, to try to have enough numbers. So maybe there's 8, I don't know. But, we certainly will welcome the new guys that we have coming in the fall because those guys are going to have a role in terms of the depth that they add to our team. And, I kind of enjoy the challenge of working with, players like this who don't have experience that are eager and anxious to learn and are excited about trying to do things the right way.
And that's what the rest of the coaching world doesn't need, James, and doesn't want. Nick Saban to get excited about coaching again. I don't know if you've ever heard Nick Saban say this, but he says he learned this from the great Buddy Ryan, is be your best assistant coach. He said when he was someone else's assistant, he was always trying to be their best assistant. He said one of the problems that happen with coaches is when they become the head coach, they lose a great assistant because they are now no longer their best assistant. That's what Nick Saban is communicating there. A bunch of young guys hungry, ready to get going. Gonna have to have a couple of guys, I think, that was signed in this year's freshman class come in and help.